on the floor, I'll make you bounce.
So let's just get straight into it and start talking about how you got into making music, how you got into electronic music.
Well, I hardly remember how it was. I remember when it was. It was about the age of 12, 13. I was quite young. I remember it was all about, I remember my bar mitzvah, all right, as one of my first memories when it comes to electronic music. I was barely 12 or 13, and the only thing I cared about back then is the DJs, what is he doing, what the hell is these speakers, what is that turntable doing here, you know? That was my first thing that really intrigued me to try to look more into it.
Yeah, so you just got into DJs, it's like, I want to be that guy.
Fantastic.
Saw all the girls around him, like, yeah.
Well,
Sounds
no in my bar mitzvah though, huh? Not so many girls back then.
But yeah, I mean, and how did it grow from there? Did you start DJing before you produced?
Yes, I started DJing around that age, 12. I actually got into production when I was, let's say, 16, 17. It's a bit afterwards. But yeah, I think my first memory of music was electronic music, though, because I got into this whole techno scene, tech house-ish, quite early. I mean, as a kid of 12, 13 years old, you wouldn't expect that.
Yeah, totally. Most people start off in a band.
Exactly, more commercial stuff and you get into that, but yeah.
So, what was that progression for you to become a producer? You were DJ when you played vinyl, just like at parties and stuff like that?
So yes, I started from CDs when that age. I used to promote as well when I was around 13, 14 and onwards, just to get some cash to buy turntables. And finally I bought my first turntable when I was 16. And that was when I got my first records, started to buy records regularly, and yeah, it started from there.
What was your first studio setup like? Was it just very basic?
Oh yeah, exactly. My first studio based equipment was just headphones, basically, not even speakers. It was my computer, PC, and my headphones, and I think it was an old, I even don't remember the name of that software anymore, Reason software. Yeah, that was like, it's still going, huh? All right.
So yeah, you were just like making loops and reasons and stuff like that?
Exactly, yeah,
So
I took it from there.
Your studio now is just hardware, right?
Yes, the only, let's say, digital equipment in my studio at the moment is just my computer, when I actually sequence stuff and record stuff on. And but all the rest, all the gears, from the FXs to the compressors to everything is basically analog based.
Yeah, and if you started out in Reason and on a computer, how did you end up moving away?
Well, yeah, it happens piece by piece, but quite fast. I mean, I started with the Reason and headphones. The first thing I bought was monitors. Then I got a compressor. Then I got this, and then I got that. And at the end, it was like, okay, I'm already here. Why not to take it to the next level, you know? And I've always been intrigued about this old school house and techno sounds, and I always try to explore how I get myself into that place. And it was always about the gear back then. Now you got great softwares that can emulate. It's not the same, in my opinion, it will never be the same, but it's emulated quite reasonably.
When you get tracks sent to your label as demos,
Yeah.
do you always find yourself being drawn to things that sound a bit more organic and a bit more analog?
That's a good question. I mean, I literally sign things I like and I think gonna stand the test of time in a way. If I see myself playing that record 10 years from now, probably it's something I would sign. Of course, firstly I have to like the record, but I still have to get into that parameter where I know it's gonna stand for a long time. Just for me to go back to the catalog, go through records and say, wow, this is still fantastic, or this is the idea of what I'm trying to do with the label.
And what is it for you that defines something that's not exactly timeless, but something that will last a long time?
Well, something which is a bit out of the usual trend, loops that I can find so easily on so many different labels today. Try to sign this specific record that still sound very different from what everyone else is doing. That's it at the end of the day. It's all about being special and doing your own thing.
Is there like a templated process you've got?
Yes.
Or is it just like different every time? Or?
No, yes, I do have it as a template. I'm trying sometimes to do different things, but I still have my comfort zone. Means I have to start most of my tracks with a kick because I find it as very defining of what's going to happen next. So it starts from the kick and it's go to the hi-hats and then it's go up and up when it comes to the drum section. And after the drum section, usually when I go the drum section full as a unit, then I start to work on sound and effects and all around it. But this is something that happens nearly in every production I'm involved in. I always come back after I finish the idea of what I'm doing. I always come back and try to change the hi-hat and then try to change the kick and the snare and start it all over again. It's basically going through different circles. I'm not a fast producer. I'm not producing a track per night. I have my wife in the crowd to second me on that. It's taking me a while. Sometimes she's telling me, you're playing the same loop for I don't know how long, like you're making, I have the headache already. So yeah, I'm taking that loop and I try to reorganize it and reproduce it and changing the kick and recompress the hi-hat and reverb the snare or whatever till I find myself very peace with what I'm doing.
Yeah, so and you mentioned loops. Is that the way you approach your tracks, building it from small loops
very
that
much,
you've created?
Very much. I'm coming from this Detroit techno, from techno in general, not just the Detroit part, but I'm coming from techno originally, which is very loop-based music, you know. So my approach to music is very loopy. It doesn't matter even if I'm doing a melodic track, it's still going to be melodic, but in a loopy way. If I'm doing just a drum track, it's going to be loopy all along, of course, with some effects as in and out and arrangement, but it's always about the loop for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned you start with kicks, and your tracks, when you play them out, sound massive in the club. Is there any tips you can give for getting kick and bass, which is the classic problem, to fit together better and to make kicks and bass sound big in the club in general?
Well, there's this thing that not a lot of producers, at least not young producers, realize, that even when you're building drums got notes and they got keys. It's not just melodic that got keys. It's not just to be a layer of melody to build each other. It can also be layers of drums of building each other as a one whole. Means there's got this different key for every hi-hat and kick and snare you're trying to accomplish into your track. So I think when the drums are really talking with each other in the same language, on the same key, on the same note, they try to create this special cake all together with all these ingredients, then it's more a matter of mix and mastering. Once you get this at first, and you mix it in the right way, and this is another cool thing, because I'll tell you a little story. I got a good friend of mine, some of you probably know his name, is Itamar Sagi. He's a producer from Israel as well. And I remember one of the first time he came to my studio, that was maybe 10, 15 years ago. He came to my studio, and he's graduated from a very high school of sound and production in Israel, very high class. And he came to my studio, and he was looking at what am I doing, and he was like holding his hand and saying, like, what the fuck are you doing? You're doing all the wrong things that they teach us. You're going against everything the book says. And I told him, of course, because if you go by the book, you're going to be sound like the book, and you don't want to sound like the book. You want to have your own identity. You have to try new things to get into new results. So now he's doing everything wrong, yeah? But that's one of the things that make me get into the place where I can find my own sound. And these drums you're talking about, I'm filtering a lot of things that you wouldn't even think that I should filter, or doing different frequencies, tricks in some parts that make the track sounds fatter or different. So I guess it's good to do those mistakes, and it's very important to do those mistakes, even just to realize that you shouldn't do them. But once in every 50 mistakes, you will find this specific mistake that will define you as an artist.
What was it that made you want to start your own label in the first place?
Well, I find myself back then, it was 2005, give or take, doing stuff for different labels back then, like Ovum and Cocoon and Renaissance, which used to be quite a cool label back then. Now it doesn't exist anymore. And I still find myself with this specific sound that I never felt like it's belonged to any of these labels anyway. I thought that's the cue for me to start my own thing, when I can put my own identity on, to build something with my own crew, with my own people. I'm surrounded with really addictive people to the process, and I'm really happy about it. And I mean, if you're surrounded with those people in one side and the other side, you know your sound should be belonging somewhere else, that's the right cue to really do something which is more of a project and not just for yourself.
Sure. And what's the biggest challenge about running a label in the digital era?
I have to say that after so long, the label is kind of running by its own. We have the team which is working on the label. We have the office. Everyone he knows what he should do and how to do it. So now it's kind of running by its own. So it's kind of an easy process of selecting the music and just do these meetings when we can discuss about what's next.
Moving on to your DJ sets, I mean, using Traktor, vinyl, CDJs now? You started on CDs, but...
Well, that's a heavy story. It's heavy literally because it's go between everything. Like I still traveling with my Traktor bag. I still traveling with my vinyl bag most of the time. So basically I'm kind of split between, because the thing is like this, the music you get on vinyl now, these days, in the second round of what's going on right now with vinyls, that music you can get only on vinyl. Means most of the music that's getting released on vinyl these days, it's a vinyl only music. So if you miss the record, you cannot get it. So you want to have it because if you have it, you can play it for a long time because it's yours. Because they're making 200 copies of that vinyl, then if you got it, you play it for 10 years and nobody know what it is. So it's timeless. At the end of the day, we're still getting a lot of promos for the label, which those I want to play out and test out, and even my own music. So I still have to have my Traktor set up. So basically, I'm kind of mixed between whatever I can to get the best result I can.
And just to kind of finish up, I mean, I just want to ask you, what would be your key piece of advice over the years, not necessarily for mixing, but in general? I mean, you got into this at a really young age and was kind of interested in the one genre for a long time and stuck with it. And what would be your bit of advice across that journey, the biggest lesson you've learned also as a label owner?
Well, I just say don't give up. I mean, I remember myself I started, as I said, DJing around 12, 13, in the age of 22, 21. My parents were like, okay, like all your friends doing this and that, they all go to study, what's going on, what's next? And I was like, listen, I'm stick with my thing, and I'm not gonna give up. So this is what I am, and I knew this is who I am. I knew if either I'm gonna be a poor artist in the age of 55, living probably in the hills of, I don't know, like some place in the end of nowhere, but still doing the music, or I'm gonna be the DJ who do what he like to do and enjoying it and can live from it. So it wasn't a choice of doing this or not. It was about the choice how to do it. So I say, if you stick with something and you really go with it long enough, I mean, there's no guarantees in life, but it's better than nothing. It's always better to do what you love, better to work for someone else to do what he loves.